All right. This is the final check. Is everyone ready? We'll be starting in 1 minute. All right. MEDCY is ready. Amethyst? All right. The time is officially 3:45 p.m. So I will begin now. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good evening I bid to all. With blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are gladly able to gather here today for Dean's Cup. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I thank all of you for joining us today, and I welcome each and every one of you warmly. My name is Amir, and I am your chairperson and timekeeper for today's debate. I would also like to introduce our very esteemed judge to all of you. We have Brother Hanafi here from Gumba, I think. So before we begin, I have to explain some of the rules, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. Speeches should be 7 minutes in duration. Speakers exceeding this may be penalized, but should never be substantially less than 7 minutes. A bell will be rung after every consecutive minute. After 6 minutes, the bell will be rung twice. After 7 minutes, the bell will be rung until the speaker stops delivering their speech. POIs can only be given after the expiration of 1 minute and may not be given after the expiration of 6 minutes. POIs may only be given to opposing teams and should be generally not more than 15 seconds in duration. If the speaker exceeds the 15-second duration, the chairperson, me, may request the speaker to end their POI. The duration of the reply speech will be 4 minutes. Speakers must use formal language. Inappropriate language is strictly prohibited. Debate sessions will always start with the government's first speaker, which is the Prime Minister, followed by the opposition leader, Deputy Prime Minister, Deputy Leader of Opposition, Government's Whip, and will end with the Opposition's Whip. For reply speeches, both government and opposition sides are given 4 minutes of preparation for reply speeches. All right. Before starting, I would like to check, esteemed judge, are you here? All right, okay. So with the rules explained, we will now start or close today with our final debate. The motion before this House this day is, this House believes the act of Robin Hood is morally acceptable in the eyes of society. The government team is Amethyss, with Humaira as the first speaker, Akish as the second speaker, and Nur Hafiza as the third speaker. The opposition team is MEDCY. We have Haziq as the first speaker, Zarif as the second speaker, and Ayman as the third speaker. For the reply speeches, for the government side, it will be delivered by Akish, and for the opposition side, it will be delivered by Haziq. So, without waiting any further, let me welcome in our first speaker of the day from the government team to open the floor. Please welcome Humaira from Amethyss.
Am I audible?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Assalamualaikum and good evening, everyone. The topic today for our debate is this house believes that the act of Robin Hood is morally acceptable in the eyes of society. We, the government side, define morally acceptable as an actions or behavior or decisions that align with accepted ethical standards or principles, indicating that they are considered morally permissible or justified within given societal or cultural context. Next, in the eyes of society, this suggests how particular action or behavior or situation is judged by a community or culture, then deemed acceptable, appropriate, or trustworthy. We, the government team, believe that this statement is true. As the first speaker, I'll be talking about corruption and exploitation. The rich in the question are engaged in corruption practices, exploiting others to mask their wealth. Robin Hood's action can be seen as a form of resistance against systemic corruption, garnering support from those who believe in justice. The act of Robin Hood actually doing a huge favor to the society. They basically the poor get their money back after the rich basically stole the money from them by increasing their tax. Now, move on to my second point. My second point is practical ethics. From a practical standpoint, if Robin Hood's action result in overall happiness or well-being by improving the lives of the impoverished, then it can be considered morally acceptable. It's not like Robin Hood harmed the rich or whatnot. He just take back what originally belonged to the society. By focusing on the aspect of corruption among the wealthy, this point contribute to the narrative that Robin Hood actions can be viewed as morally acceptable response to society injustice. So, in my conclusion, what is Robin Hood's doing is actually morally acceptable to the society. Well, that's all for me. I rest my case.
I'd, I'd like to confirm that's your whole speech.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much to the Prime Minister for opening our debate. Now, let us please welcome the first speaker of opposition to open the case for the opposition side. Let's please welcome Haziq from MEDCY.
Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible first of all?
Walaikum salam, brother. Yes.
All right, I'll begin 3, 2, 1. All right, so the motion for today is this House believes that the act of Robin Hood is morally acceptable in the eyes of society. So the government team has given two definitions, which is morally acceptable, which is to mean accepted ethical standards and eyes of society. But they have failed to give one definition, which is what is the act of Robin Hood we are talking about. Given in the info slide, the act of Robin Hood is talking about stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. Now, there are two ways that this can pan out. One is the rich worked for their money and therefore they deserve it, and the poor didn't work and therefore that's why they're poor. But that is not the definition that the government went with, and it's not the definition that I agree with. The definition that I agree with, and I would like to make clear, is that the rich are tyrants toward the poor in this case, and they are taking money from the poor in the form of taxes and then misusing them by not actually distributing the wealth as it's supposed to be in an economic system. And I think I believe that is what the government is also trying to say. And that is also what we believe is trying to be discussed in the debate today. So now, I'll tackle one of the definitions given by the government team. They seem to say that stealing is morally acceptable. Under their definition of morally acceptable, Morally acceptable means accepted ethical standards. So a simple question, is stealing ethical in society? Clearly not. Just from a legal standpoint, no. Okay, so then I as a society, how is judged by society? They seem to only think of society as just the poor people, whereas society is an amalgamation of both the poor and the rich. They're not living separately. Sure, their classes are different, but when you're talking about how it's viewed by the society, you can't just view how the poor view it, because the rich are also part of that same society, right? So if you only focus on the poor will be happy, but the rich will be furious. In fact, my second speaker that is one of the points that my second speaker will bring up. So now, what is this debate actually about? Is this ethical or not to steal from the rich who are oppressing the poor and giving the money back to the poor? We believe it is not ethical, it is not morally acceptable. Why? Because the ends do not justify the means. So for what we need to prove is that basically we all agree that the act of stealing on a general sense is wrong. The reason there is debate in this debate is because we're stealing from the rich who are oppressing the poor. But why is Robin Hood stealing from the rich and giving back to the poor? Why is he stealing? Because the money isn't properly being distributed from the rich. Why? Because the rich are corrupt. So what should Robin Hood stealing achieve for it to be a justified action? It needs to achieve balance in the economy. So if Robin Hood steals, but it doesn't achieve balance in the economy, then effectively Robin Hood is just committing a crime with no justifiable end. All right, I hope that is understood well, because that is our whole burden of proof. Our burden of proof is that the action of Robin Hood of stealing from the rich and giving to the poor doesn't fix the problem. In fact, it'll actually make the problem worse. Why? These are the points that are going to be explained by my second speaker, which is that stealing from the rich and giving to the poor doesn't work long term, because the rich have the resources to protect from getting robbed again. And the second point will be how it promotes criminality in the society. So we as the opposition team are going to prove how stealing from the rich and giving to the poor will not work and is not an effective method to solve the problem. When it's not an effective method to solve the problem, it stops becoming a morally acceptable thing, because it doesn't work. You're just stealing. What's the point of stealing? Oh, to save the people, but the end, it doesn't save the people. So that is what we are going to prove, that it doesn't save the people. In fact, it makes the society a worse place. So to the points of and that will be my point later on, I'll get to the ends don't justify the means. So to the point of the rebuttals given by the first speaker, I'll try and find something to say. So they mentioned corruption and exploitation. So stealing is a form of resistance. Stealing is a form of resistance, sure, but stealing is still a crime. End of the day, the poor get their money back, but the rich are still taking taxes from the poor. So it just becomes an endless cycle of the rich taking money from the poor, the Robin Hood stealing from the rich, Robin Hood giving money to the poor, and then the rich stealing money from the poor again. My second speaker will elaborate more on this, on the fact that the rich would get mad because the poor are stealing from them. And since in the government's world and in our agreed definition, they have control over taxes because that's where the money is coming from, then they could just increase taxes because, hey, you're stealing from me. What are you doing? Let me increase taxes. Now, this becomes a deadly cycle that just continues. You're not solving the problem. As a medic student, I'll give you a simple analogy. It's like telling a diabetes patient, giving him a bunch of insulin, but not asking him to stop eating 20 donuts a day. That's not going to solve the problem. So that is why when the government team mentioned form of resistance, great, you're getting there. You're getting to the actual solution to the problem. We as the opposition team believe that there should be another form of resistance. Stand up to the oppression in a different way. You do not need to commit a crime to stand up to a crime. And then they said about practical ethics, improving the life of society. Again, they're forgetting that society is not just the poor, it includes the rich. If you want to live together, you need to work together. Okay, so now that goes on to my first point, which is the ends don't justify the means, and stealing is still stealing. Even if you say it's for a good cause, but as we will prove later on in this debate, that it does not solve the problem, therefore it is not for a good cause, therefore it is not justifiable, stealing is still stealing. For example, take the Black Lives Matter movement. There were a bunch of riots and whatnot. Sure, you could say the riots were meant for as a sign of resistance. But then what happened in the riots? Lootings happened. Are we going to justify the lootings? No. Stealing is still stealing, even if you're thinking you're doing it for something good. And what we are going to prove further on is that it's not going to affect anything. It's not going to bring up something good. Crime is still crime. It doesn't fix the problem. In fact, it's going to make it worse. And that is what we are going to prove today. And I think that is all I have to say. So overall, we believe that the actions of Robin Hood is not morally acceptable because it is not ethical, number one, because stealing is a crime. And number two, it is not effective and in the sense that it does not reach the end that it wants to reach, which is solving the problem of the poor and the economical disparity. And with that, I'd like to end my speech. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Tahazi, the leader of the opposition. So, I'd like to call upon the second speaker of the government, Akish, to continue the debate for the government side.
Okay. So I'll start in 3, 2, 1. So Assalamualaikum to everybody present today. So the topic for our debate today is that the act of Robin Hood is morally acceptable in the eyes of society. So we, as the government team, we believe that this statement is true, and we actually stand firmly with our stance. So, the first speaker from the opposition team has tried to tell you that stealing isn't ethical and it is a crime. Yeah, I do agree with you on that part. But however, that is the only thing. That is the only solution to the poverty at that particular moment. It is wrong, but that is the only solution to help the poor in order to survive at a particular moment. It doesn't work long term, of course. It doesn't work long term. It is not an effective method. But however, um, however, they do not have any solution to stop the corruption.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me finish speaking. So basically, like you said just now that the tax collected from the society will be given to the rich. It just makes the rich gets richer and the poor gets poorer. So even though it doesn't work long term, but that oppressed the poor. So so the act of Robin Hood is actually the only solution to the only alternative to help the poor at a particular moment. So I'm going to start my argument. So my first argument is social justice. So Robin Hood is portrayed as social justice hero as he helps to marginalize communities by robbing from the rich. His actions are often viewed as a response to systemic issues that lead to poverty and suffering among certain groups. He is seen as a symbol of resistance against oppressive authorities, and he stands out for the common people who are suffering under unjust rulers, under oppressive rulers. He is actually championing social justice and also equity. And this is seen as a corrective measure to address economic disparities and also promote a more just society. Hence, his actions of stealing from the rich and giving to the poor will put the society in the same level of social class so that social inequalities can be eliminated and everybody gets equal treatment. Since we live in a society where the wealthy oppress the poor, hence Robin Hood's action is considered as the right thing to do as a form of resistance against an unjust system. So moving on to my second argument is Robin Hood's action is actually a symbol of empathy and also generosity. So Robin Hood is often depicted as a character with a strong sense of empathy and generosity. His actions are motivated by a desire to help those in need, which aligns with societal values of compassion. So even though it is wrong to steal from the legal point of view, however, if we look in depth into this matter, it is morally acceptable to do these noble intentions as he fights for the common good, contributing to the positive view of his action that he helps to provide necessities for the poor. So
Robin Hood's civil obedience can be seen as a moral obligation because we live in a society with a system that is sucks for failing to provide justice to the poor. Hence, the importance of law should not be taken in certain contexts, for instance, in this context. So let me paint a picture to you. For instance, try to put yourself in the shoes of the poor, where you are being oppressed to pay for the tax until you do not get you do not have money to buy food. So in these desperate conditions faced
Eli?
by the poor, I'm sorry, let me speak. In these desperate conditions faced by the poor in Robin Hood's time, would you take? I do guarantee and believe that you would take Robin Hood's action into consideration if you are in that desperate condition, just like the poor we're facing. So yeah, if Robin Hood isn't the one who come up with this alternative to steal from the rich and give to the poor, then who else is going to do that? Definitely not the higher authorities who actually treated the marginalized like rubbish. So in conclusion, Robin Hood does not rob the rich to give to the poor, but he actually robs from the undeserving to help the deserving, which shows his response of resistance the tyranny of oppressive rulers. So that's all from me. Arison, please.
All right. Thank you very much to the Deputy Prime Minister for your speech. So now I'd like to continue by welcoming to the stage Zarif, which is the Deputy Leader of Opposition, to continue the case for the opposition team.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. All right. To repeat to the speaker of the government, of course, you said the stealing is the only solution. Okay. There are many solutions we can do that. The village can do protest, a peaceful protest. They can stop paying taxes. Okay, even though if there is only choice, like you say just now, it doesn't work. It will repeat the cycle in the end. It will work for short run. Okay, so another point you said is motivate people. Yeah, they do motivate people, but in a wrong way, in a negative way. That I will explain in my second point. All right. For my first point is, okay, enough for the rebuttal. I will enter my first point is, it doesn't work for long term. Okay, he can steal once, second, third, or tenths, but eventually he will get caught. And in the end, the rich can lay trap, as they have many resources. They can do many things. And okay, and another point, under the below the doesn't work for long term, he doesn't solve the problem. It's a endless cycle. So the poor pay the tax for the richest, and the Robin Hood steal from the richest, and in the end, the Robin Hood will give the money back to poor, and poor pay taxes back to richest, and in the end, you repeat the cycle. But eventually, at one point, the rich will get mad. Okay, it goes because the rich hate the poor, because the rich hate the poor. Okay, if you're the rich, if you're in the shoe of the rich at that time, it doesn't make you hate the poor even more. Okay, the fact that rich already hate poor, the rich think poor as a smelly farmer and do not have a courtesy in their action. But the action of Robin Hood fill up the fire of the rich toward the poor person. Okay, so by that, the rich can do many things. They can triple the taxes, and when they triple the taxes, some villager, not some, but many villager cannot pay for the triple taxes, and many of them will go to the jail. All right. So for my second point is promote criminality. Oh, more people will think it's a good thing. Like, oh, mom, I want to become a Robin Hood. He's a hero figure. Oh, because of that, it creates a society, a society that stealing is normal thing. So it's more beside that. Sorry, beside that, it's promote the criminality because the is use the Robin Hood, the criminality in the society will use Robin Hood as excuse. And they're gonna say, oh, Robin Hood can do that kind of stuff. Of course, as a criminal can do it like that. We can help the poor too. We can still do, but I can get some money too, right? Doesn't make the criminal a good thing, right? So, um, that's all from me. Do you have any POI beside it? There's not. I will end my speech with the conclusion is that Robin Hood should not do that act because it doesn't work for long term, and of course, it's promote community in the society itself. And of course, protests can do instead of that action of the Robin Hood. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much to the Deputy Leader of Opposition. So I'd like to welcome the third speaker, the government whip from the government side, Nur Hafiza, to the floor. Come.
Afternoon. Topic for a debate is that this House believes that the act of Robin Hood is it's morally acceptable in the eyes of society. Okay. The first speaker said to you that stealing is still stealing, but okay. The first speaker displays an example like BLM. Like if they do that protest, it promotes it promotes criminal acts. But if the action of Robin Hood is the start of revolution. If he doesn't do it, then who will? So yes. I will just strengthen the point of my first speaker and the second speaker. The first speaker point is that corruption and exploitation. The poor get their money back after being stolen by the rich. This act of Robin Hood are a response to a society where wealth is concentrated among the elite, leaving many suffer from poverty. And the second rebuttal is that practical ethics.
PI.
No, let me finish. Practical ethics. Though unconventional, this act contribute to the well-being of the larger society. The status quo that perpetuates poverty and inequality. It was also a pragmatic response to an inequitable system aiming to alleviate the suffering of the marginalized. And then it's taken as a symbol of resistance against extend corruption within the existing power structures. It also embracing the moral imperatives to address inequalities that justifies Robin Hood and conventional method in the society. Okay. Then my second speaker spoke to you about social justice.
PI.
No, let me speak. It if social justice, the act of Robin Hood will make the poor and the rich have the same level. The and and it aims to create a more inclusive society where prosperity is shared among all, not just the higher ups. And this act, challenging unjust concentration of wealth and standing up against oppressive structure. And she also spoke to you about symbol of empathy and generosity. Like she said, Robin Hood is stealing from undeserving, not the rich that gives to the poor. The Robin Hood just steals from the rich that is doing the corrupted, not the one that doing good. So his deeds inspire others to consider the well-being of their fellow citizen, not the act of stealing itself. It consider the well-being of fellow citizens and encourage a more generous and compassionate society. And Robin Hood also stands as a beacon of empathy, showcasing the importance of understanding and alleviating the struggles of the less fortunate. To close this speech with, um, Robin Robin Hood commitment to work this
PI.
distribution.
Okay.
Distribution to unconventional. It serves as a beacon or just a confession. Okay. Robin Hood emerged from as a symbol of resistance because the poor did not have the power to fight back against the rich. So it it was a hero that the poor deserve after injustice. Robin Hood action are driven by desire to rectify social inequalities and empower the less fortunate, aligned with widely held values of justice and compassion. This act is a justified means to address systemic disparities and foster a more equitable societies. So we as a government still stands with the motion that the act of Robin Hood is morally acceptable in the eyes of a society. So with that, I rest my case.
All right. Thank you very much to the government whip. Very interesting speech. So, last but definitely not least, I welcome the third speaker from the opposition side, which is the opposition's whip, Ayman, to the floor. Here.
Assalamualaikum. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Very audible.
So I'm gonna start at 1, 2, 3. Okay. Assalamualaikum. So my name is Aiman and I'm the whip for Team MEDCY. I'm gonna start this debate by giving out some rebuttal. First of all, I want to clarify that my first speaker did not say stealing, did not say BLM in general was wrong. In fact, we did only say stealing and the riots of BLM was wrong. Never mentioned BLM was wrong. BLM itself was a good cause. So just a clarification. So one of the catchphrase I created was it was a temporary remedy, but long-term pain. Even Team Amethyst themselves told you agreed with us that it's not sustainable, it's not good. But they talk about morality, they're doing this for compassion. Let me ask you, what instead of thinking about just the poor, think about the rich. What compassion would they have for the poor? Oh yeah, you're a little bit poor. Yeah, you can steal my money, have some of my money. You know what? I'm gonna give you more. Just steal. I don't care. Like, even if you want to say, yeah, the rich people are evil, stealing is still not acceptable. It's still not morally ethical. It's still not acceptable. Is it? Is it? It's not, right? Um, wait. One of my second speaker emphasized on the endless cycle of suffering that the poor people will endure if the action of Robin Hood does continue. And I strongly support his point because it's very logic to think that when you steal from someone, someone will hate you, right? Someone will want to punish you. Someone will want something to do with you. So they would have to use all their resources, which again, according to my second speaker, which is again logic, richer people have more resources, right? So they will use all their resources up against the poor people that doesn't even have money to apparently eat, said the AMETHYSS speaker, one of them. So what resource would they go up against the rich people with already more than enough resources to starve these people? They're just gonna suffer even more. And again, my first speaker told you about how this cycle, it's not, even if they took money from the rich people, they're still gonna double the taxes, they're still gonna take money from the poor people. Doesn't really solve anything. It's just temporarily, oh yeah, I have money for now, but tomorrow they maybe take the taxes. Okay, I'm gonna have one analogy, which is so in the hood, Chicago or whatever, in America, you see people, African Americans steal, they sell drugs, they deal with drugs, they kill people, and then they provide to their family. Does that mean that it's ethical? Does that mean that they're doing it good because they're showing compassionate to their hood, to their family, to their neighbors? No, they kill people. They deal drugs. Whatever the means is, it's wrong. What they did was wrong. It was for a good cause, yes, sure. But the action itself is wrong. That's why I don't think it's ethical at all. Um, okay, one more thing that I want to touch upon is the team Amethyst keep on talking about stealing being the only solution for the poor people. And let me tell you, there's a lot of alternatives. As in, you don't have to fight crime with crime. Why do you fight fire with fire knowing if they use all of their resources, you would lose? You can stop paying the taxes. You can stop working for them. I'm sure the poor people, some of them work for the rich people. You can stop working for them. And then you can protest. Like my first speaker and my second speaker both emphasized on. You can do protests. You can stop paying taxes. You can stop working for them. That cuts out their money, which will mess up their lives. So in the end, they will want you to work for them. In the end, they will pay you back, which again is the cycle we want. We want the pay. We want to at least balance out, right? The gap, right? So that's my point. It's not the only solution. You don't have to you don't have to fight crime. It doesn't have to be crime. What? Because the rich don't really hate the poor for no reason. They just want more money. That's the point. They want more money. That's why they oppress the poor people. So if you work with them for better cycle, earns them more money, you become more happy. They won't oppress you. They got the money they want. You got the life you want. You don't have to steal. One thing that I want to touch upon is Robin's action. The thing that I really want to know is how's Robin's money distribution? How does he distribute his money? Because he got it from the rich people, right? How does he distribute it to his people, to the poor people? Who knows if he took the money, he needs to survive as well. How is that ethical then? He took the money, and then how does he distribute it? Does he give equally? Does he divide equally to everyone? Or does he took some of them to himself because he did the hard work? Why don't he take the money? Right? So that itself, if Robin's money distribution itself is a question, how do you justify his action as ethical? If what he did was a mystery, you don't know how the poor people just got their money. Some maybe got $5, some maybe got 60. Who knows? It's Robin's job. They just took the money and, I got my money. Thank you, Robin. And yeah. So the point that my first speaker emphasized on was that ends does not justify the needs, which we stated a lot. That Team Amethyst even agreed that this is not sustainable. What they do is not sustainable, and it does not work. Again, we did the cycle thing, right? I mentioned that cycle does not work. It causes even more suffering for the poor people, and it doesn't even it doesn't even save them in the short term because the money will go to the rich people again. What's the point of the money? There's no point. You won't even use the money. You can't even do it because they will hate it even more. It's just like a patient of diabetes. You give him insulin, but you didn't tell him to cut sugar. Still gonna have diabetes. The insulin doesn't really solve the main cause, the main issue, which is in here, the case of Robin Hood is the distribution of wealth is the gap is too much. And for that, I think that our case is stronger than Tim Government's case, and I do rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the opposition's whip Ahmed. So now it is time for the preparation of reply speeches. Each team will be given 4 minutes. Please use the 4 minutes given very wisely to write up a good reply speech. All right, that's the bell. I hope that both teams have sufficiently written a good reply speech. For now, we will start with the opposition. So please welcome the opposition summary speaker, Hazi, to the floor.
Assalamualaikum. Boleh dengar?
Waalaikumsalam, brother.
Can you
Boleh.
hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Sorry, so cool. All right. Is the timer up?
Yeah, it's good.
All right. I'll start my reply speech now. All right. Assalamualaikum. I bid again to everyone present. All right. So let's just jump right into I'll give you a summary basically on what I think the debate turned out to be today, and also some misconceptions and things that didn't make sense from the government team, and why we as opposition believe we are right. First of all, the main clash here was the main idea that the government tried to portray was stealing is the only solution, the final solution, the only thing that can work. My second speaker and my third speaker has both mentioned that there are other ways to solve the problem. All right. So the main question of the debate is stealing okay to solve the problem? We have debated that stealing does not even solve the problem, and therefore it is not okay. So the government team keeps saying that stealing is the only solution. Clearly, it is not. My second speaker has mentioned protests are a thing. You can stop paying taxes. You can rise up to people in a different way. You can rise up to oppression in other ways. You do not need to fight crime with crime. Because when you fight crime with crime, my second speaker has mentioned this, it will only make the people who are oppressing you more mad at you. So when your oppressors are more mad at you, they oppress you more. So that is another thing that was always brought up in the debate. We mentioned this cycle of hatred that will constantly continue. Rich steal from the poor, Robin Hood steal from the rich, Robin gives to the poor. Now the rich will steal from the poor again. And in fact, the cycle gets worse as time goes on because the rich will be mad at the poor. Like we mentioned, the rich, if someone comes and steals your things, obviously you're going to be mad. And the government team has failed to address the cycle. In fact, the government team has actually agreed with us, as the second speaker said, that it doesn't work long term. So what? It's like, here you go, just a little money for today, but tomorrow you're going to be poor again. It doesn't solve the main problem. Like we gave an analogy of a diabetes patient, you give them insulin medication, but in the end, you don't ask him to stop eating sugar. You are not solving the main problem, and this will not be better for society. And again, a mistake that the government has been making is they only seem to look at how it affects the poor, right? They forget that the rich, even though they might be evil and oppressive, are still a part of the society. They just look at how the poor will react. Robin gave me money. Wonderful. And they forget that the rich will be like, these guys stole from me. I need to get back at them. I need to increase double, triple taxes. Now what's going to happen? They mentioned it's a symbol of resistance. Is crime supposed to be a symbol of resistance? Is that really where you want it to be? Crime, the symbol of your resistance. For example, my second speaker again mentioned, what if a kid grows up to want to be like Robin Hood? Oh, dad, I want to be like Robin Hood. Let me go steal. This promotes a criminal society. And again, the government has failed to prove that this won't happen. In fact, they agree with us that it doesn't work long term and it will cause more problems down the line. That is what we have proven. So basically, the whole point of the debate today was for the government team to prove that stealing solves the problem long term, and therefore, then it will be acceptable. We, as the opposition team, have proven through our 3 points that ends don't justify the means, it doesn't work long term, which you agree with us on, and it will create a society that steals with a cycle that constantly gets worse. So we have thoroughly.
Your mic is muted.
Where did I stop just now?
Your team has thoroughly proven.
Okay, my team has thoroughly proven that Robin Hood stealing from the rich doesn't solve the problem, and it just makes the cycle worse. How? Because it promotes a society that steals, because it's not solving the main problem. And the government has failed to address the cycle. And that is why we believe that because it doesn't solve the problem, therefore, this action is not morally acceptable, because you cannot fight a crime with a crime if it doesn't solve the problem long term. With that, I'd like to end my speech. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much to the opposition summary speaker. Sorry. I'd like to welcome the last speaker of the government, as well as the last speaker of this debate, Akish, to sum up for the team and the debate as a whole.
So I'm gonna give my reply speech according to what you have according to what we have debated just now. So okay. Okay. So even though like you said just now that it that this act of stealing does not work long term and is also is not an effective method, but at least that is the only thing that could help them, that could help the poor to survive at a particular moment, like I said just now. So yeah. So basically, Robin Hood is just doing a huge favor to the society. It's not like Robin Hood harmed the rich of whatnot. He just take back of what originally belongs to the society. Okay? So because if the government itself is corrupted, then the society is still unable to do anything. Because the government itself refused to help the poor. Then what else is left to do? What other options are we left with? Do you want the poor to die of hunger? So even though if you steal from someone, they will hate you or they will punish you. But screw that. I just want to eat. I just want to feed my children. I just want to survive. So yeah. And like the solution that you gave just now was like, what if the poor does not need to pay for the tax? Okay, but what if the tax is compulsory to be paid, even though you aren't working? Because in this case, we're talking about oppressive rulers. So obviously, the ruler could oppress the poor by giving them like very ridiculous rules, like I said just now, like the tax that is compulsory to be paid. So yeah. So so I think that the Robin Hood's action is morally acceptable in the eyes of society because that is the only option that they are left with at that particular moment, you know. So yeah, I think that's all for me.
All right. And that concludes the debate for today. This debate. Thank you to all the speakers for the great debate. Let's give you all a big round of applause for all the effort that you have put into this final debate of today. So, unfortunately, there will be no verbal adjudication, nor will there be an announcement of results, as this is a silent round. All the contestants, we should all what's kumpul? We should all gather back at LRA in right after this. So around 5 o'clock, everyone should be there. Max. All right. Thank you, dearest judge, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the debate today. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, everyone. All the best for upcoming round. All the best for the
Yeah.
results as well. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. The next session will continue tomorrow if you make it to the semifinals, which the results will be announced later. All right. Thank you. And whoa!
Azim, just saying, this is on YouTube live, so don't say anything dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, YouTube.
Wait, you
You're
were
famous,
here?
mom.
Hazim was here. Oh, he left. Okay. Thank you. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye. See you later.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great
Bye.
day.
See you at LRA.